Are you planning a wedding at the Marigold? Congratulations on taking the next step in your wedding journey. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to structure your timeline for photo and video coverage, all the way from the preparations in the morning to the Baraat, all the way to the end of your reception, and how we're going to maximize the amount of coverage from a photo and video point of view, specifically at the Marigold in Somerset, New Jersey. So whether you're still early in the planning stages or just fine-tuning your schedule, you'll walk away with the full picture to understand what's possible at this venue. And also we'll show you some real examples of weddings along the way. All right, so let's jump right in. What I love best about the Marigold is that they have a bridal suite right upstairs. So that way you can easily prepare and get your hair and makeup done right on site and go right into your ceremony downstairs. The bridal suite upstairs also has plenty of room for your family, for your bridesmaids, and also right across the hall, you have room for the grooms and the groomsmen as well. Now, what we like to do first thing in the morning is ensure that your preparation shots are taken. We make sure we have all your details laid out, your dress, your jewelry, your shoes, your rings. And once your hair and makeup is done, we'll start with portraits of you getting formally dressed into your outfit. While you have some time to get ready, we're able to pivot over to the groom room right across the hall and capture his getting ready as well. What I love most about the venue itself is that you have both rooms right upstairs. It allows a photographer and videographer to go between to ensure that we're maximizing coverage equally in the morning while also saving you some time. One small caveat is that the Marigold doesn't have any windows upstairs. Now, for photographers and cinematographers, we love natural light. What I do recommend is if you can spend 4 to 5 to 10 minutes, go downstairs into the cocktail room because there's a great big window of shaded light that comes right through. It looks fantastic first thing in the morning. You always want to be by a window when you're doing preparation shots. That allows for more natural light and less artificial light in your pictures. It really provides a great look to your images once they're fully produced. So if you can afford it, have your photographer, cinematographer take you downstairs into the cocktail room and look for the big white window that has a sheer through it and use that setup to grab some portraits and more details first thing in the morning. Last but not least, if you're gonna do a sarabandi or any family ritual, the room upstairs is perfect for that as well. So make sure you have your family members in attendance if you're doing a ritual upstairs in the room. From there, we can then pivot right into the first look and photos of the bride and groom together. Now, the Marigold has a fantastic layout outside. They have a gazebo right in front. They have some pillars over on the right-hand side, and there's a number of different spots where you can take photos right in front as well. The first look should generally always be outside near the gazebo, because that's really the iconic moment where the bride and groom see each other for the first time. And the gazebo is a staple of the Marigold. This is a really fantastic moment for the bride and groom to see each other for the first time in their wedding outfits on the wedding day. Once they see each other and they have their moment, then that is when we generally will go right into a photo shoot of the couple together. This is where we'll have some fun. We'll do some pose shots. We'll do some fun shots. We'll move in and around the gazebo to grab some great portraiture of the bride and groom together. Allow for roughly about 30 minutes or so for this time frame. And once those photo sessions are completed, we'll want to pivot right into family formals. This is best time in the morning when everyone's fresh, fully dressed, hair and makeup is fresh as well. And therefore, I would start to call up parents, moms, dads, immediate family members for family formals. We can use the same gazebo spot for that as well. And depending on how large your bridal party is, you can use this spot, or you can move over onto the alternate side of the venue as well, where there's the large pillar set. Both locations are fantastic for family photos and formals and the photo shoot of the couple together. It's at this point in the morning where the family and the vendors are preparing for the Baraat and the Milni. Now, at this stage, your ceremony decorations should be fully set up by this point in the day. The photographer and cinematographer are going to need about 15 to 20 minutes to go capture those decorations because that's the ideal time before guests start making their way into the ceremony hall. Be sure to buffer some time between the end of the photo shoot, but before the Baraat starts to allow the team to capture details of the ceremony site, any other gifts that you may have laid out for your family and friends that are in attendance. Allow them the time to capture the rest of the room while it's empty, while it's fresh, before we pivot into the Baraat. All right, now let's dive right into your Baraat. The Marigold has a perfect layout to start a Baraat from the very end of the driveway all the way up through the front of the entry doors. I would ask the staff to cone off the area, stop any traffic coming just for the safety of your guests. Also, if your cinematographer has a drone, this is a perfect time to get some aerial shots. If you have any specific recommendations for your DJ, this is also the perfect time to ask him or her to start to play the music that you have for your Baraat. Otherwise, if they have a Baraat van, a dole player, they'll naturally keep the energy going. And at this point, I would allocate roughly about 30 to 45 minutes for your Baraat. They're gonna go nice and slow up the driveway. This is really where you wanna maximize the amount of fun you have at your wedding before we start to get into the remaining processions. By the end of your Baraat, we'll wanna start off at the very front of the venue doors, and I would have both sets of families that are part of the Milni ceremony ready to go. Have a standard checklist so that way you have the pairings, so mom for mom, dad for dad, sibling versus sibling, and have the garlands on standby as well. Your photographer is going to want to capture the interaction between both sides of the family. One another is going to bless each other and they're going to exchange garlands. And at this point, you'll want to have a photo which each group or each couple that's part of the Milni ceremony as well. So there's always a fun time where there's a lot of interaction, a lot of fun and cheering going on. One mama might try to pick up the other mama, so it's always a fantastic moment. Right at the conclusion of your Milni ceremony, we're gonna go right into Aarti at the entrance of the mandap. Now, from a photo video point of view, this is probably the place where we struggle the most because we're always fighting for angles. Definitely give them some room right at the entrance so that way they can capture some more of the candid reactions as they occur. These are really special moments in the beginning of the Indian wedding, and I would allow them for some room before they start to make their way into the banquet hall. At this stage, your guests are going to want to be seated. You want to have the venue escort them to their room, and we'll start off with the procession of the groom making his way to the altar or to the mandap and be prepared to conduct the first Gari Puja ceremony. Now, this video is not going to deep dive into the actual family rituals or the rituals of the Indian wedding overall, but we'll cover that in another video. But for now, processions, allow your guests to be seated, and then that way we can start to have the ceremony and have our bridal party start to make their way into the banquet hall. For any typical ceremony setup, the first 2 rows are typically reserved for the family, the elders, and the VIPs of the wedding. From a photo video point of view, we want to ensure that we're not blocking anyone's view, and we're also not sacrificing our angles as photographers and cinematographers. So I would slightly request that the venue pull those rows back just slightly to allow for enough camera room so that way we can fully document the wedding. At this stage, the cinematographer and photographer are gonna probably be using multiple angles. They're gonna have a wide, a medium, and a tight, so that way they can capture the wedding ceremony from all different types of angles. From here, we're going to cover the most standard part of the Indian rituals. That's going to include things like Mangalsutra, the Feras, the Gari Puja, and the garland exchange, the ring exchange. We'll dive into the specifics of an Indian wedding in another video, but for now, I would ensure that you have plenty of room for your cinematographers at the front of the mandap and allow them for room to be able to document the ceremony as we get into the actual traditions themselves. Now, typically your Ashirvad is the last part of the Indian ceremony. The biggest mistakes I see families make is they don't ask the venue to clear off the space right after the ceremony concludes. You want to make sure there's a clear entrance and a clear exit for your guests and families that are going to be taking photos with a couple. Depending on how many family and friends you have in attendance, if you have anywhere between 200 to 300 people, you want to allocate an hour, but you want to ensure that there's a clear space for people to enter onto the stage and also exit, because it's very easy for this process to get very frustrating if there's not an easy way for people to transition between groups. Now, it's at this stage after Vidai is over that we'll want to allow for the bride and groom roughly 1 to 2 hours to get ready for their reception. It's at this point of the day that the vendors will also start to transition into preparing for the evening. Once the room is set up, once the bride and groom are ready in their reception outfits, we can do some photos of the bride and groom in their evening attire outside during golden hour, which also has a really fantastic effect on our pictures. The Marigold has the gazebo, as you may remember from earlier, but there's also some other parts of the venue that we can start to utilize, such as the iconic front staircase, the pillars on the right-hand side of the venue, or even the fountain up front as well. Once we've gotten our photos of our couple, we'll then want to do a room first look. And that's where the bride and groom will see the reception room for the very first time. At this stage, the photographer and cinematographer will also capture table settings, the cake, the stage, and all the different details that have been laid out and prepared for the evening's festivities. Once we've captured all those details and the bride and groom portraits, we'll then want to call up immediate family and friends or even VIPs to do photos on stage. After we've concluded all of our family formals on the reception stage and we've got all the decorations, we're now going to transition to the actual entrances and the rest of the agenda for the reception itinerary. Ideally, this is what we recommend in terms of the timeline. Once we start to make our entrances, we have our parents, we have siblings, cousins, mamas. At this stage, the couple is the last to enter. Your guests are gonna be excited, there's gonna be a lot of energy. This is when we really start to have fun in the day. And as everyone's eyes are on the couple right as soon as the entrance, this is where we would recommend starting to go right into a first dance or cake cutting. In terms of the program, we want to ensure that we can keep a smooth flow of the high energy that we've developed right at the beginning of the start of the entrance. Your DJ is going to play some music. If you have an MC, he's going to really hype up the crowd. So as soon as the couple makes their entrance and everyone's eyes are on the couple, we'll want to utilize that time to ensure that we get through at least the first dance of the couple and or the cake cutting immediately right after that. Once we've concluded those two, then at this point, it makes perfect sense for us to go through the rest of the itinerary. That's going to be things like speeches, if there's any other rituals that may be taking place as well on stage potentially, or if not, then we'll get through mother-son dance, father-daughter dance, and then the performances that you may have as part of your itinerary. As the energy is very high during the performances, and that makes a perfect time to transition right into an open dance floor. Once we have the open dance floor, this is where your photographer and cinematographer are going to capture the highest energy part of the reception dancing, which is normally within the first 20 minutes. This is perfect to get some really fun photos of your mamas on stage or your family dancing, the bride and groom as well. So certainly bring the bride and groom onto the dance floor so that way we can capture the energy of the guests as they bless them for their new chapter in their lives. Now, as we get into dances, normally within the first 20-30 minutes, that's plenty of footage and photos for dancing. It's perfect now if we want to capture a reception sneak out of the couple as well. Now, if we didn't get enough time with a couple before we started the entrances, then the perfect backup plan is to do what's called a reception sneak out. That's where we'll take the couple outside to the gazebo, where there's a nice twilight look to the gazebo, or there's the front fountain as well, which is also a perfect spot for some pictures, or we can do photos again in front of the staircase. And these are all great options for a sneak out. I would allocate roughly about 20 minutes or so for this session. And once we've gotten through those photos, then this is typically where your photographer and cinematographer are going to want to grab photo shots and video of the engagement rings and the wedding bands. All right, so once we've concluded the ring shots, at this point, it's a free roam, it's candid photos all around. And if the bride and groom want to go from table to table and meet and greet any of the family and friends that are in attendance, this is a perfect time for us to do that as well. If you'd like a deeper dive into the rituals, we didn't get time to cover all of them in this video. I put together a more detailed guide just for you. Be sure to check the link in the description, it's completely free. Thanks again for watching. My name is Samir at Raj Photo Video. We love to be a part of your day, so if there's any support you need during the process, feel free to reach out to us, and we love the opportunity to be able to tell your story. Until next time.